In the age of exploration, maps told more than directions. They told stories. But what if some of these stories were rewritten? Not by mistake, but by design. Today, we uncover a truth footnoted into silence. A mystery erased by empire. And a name, Lequios, that may just rewrite Southeast Asian history as we know it. Academia will have to pay attention to this. 175 leagues to truth. The real Lequios was never Ryukyu. In the 16th century, Portuguese chronicler Duarte Barbosa recorded a powerful trading people known as the Lequios, a wealthy maritime nation, white, yes, watch the last video, Antonio Gaval explained that. Sailing annually to Malacca, richer than the Chinese. And yet, for centuries, Lequios was misassigned to Okinawa's Ryukyu Islands. Until now. This is incredible. In a Spanish version of Barbosa's work, see our 175 Leagues to Lequios blog for sources. They're all there. A simple marginal note emerges. It says, 175 leagues to the east. Now, this would be from Malacca, or the Malay Peninsula. No, not China. That's not what it says. He was in Malacca when this occurred. Some are already realizing, oh, that ain't Ryukyu indeed. This distance, around 900 kilometers, places Lequios not in Ryukyu, but squarely in northern Luzon, the Philippines. Barbosa was an explorer who knew that was not Ryukyu or Japan, much further, and so did the Spanish. Again, we provide the actual quote in our blog with link. Check it out. So, wait a minute. You mean Barbosa's account, considered the first mention of the Lequios by many, which is actually false. It actually provided firm geography any layman can simply read, calculate, and know this referred to the Philippines? Yep, you got it. And it is considered the traditional position that this land was Ryukyu? Huh? Well, no, actually. That is a very strange new position forced by the Jesuits to justify their Japan infiltration. Yes, infiltration. That's why they were exiled in time due to treason. Infiltration. Now, could this really be that simple? The Lequios always came with a marker? Really? Oh, not just one. There is a list of resources that we'll cover soon, and Ryukyu fails almost every one. Just as Japan fails 60% of the resource test for Zipangu of Marco Polo if we're actually reading his account rather than propaganda. Now, we've covered that in Garden of Eden Revealed. Go check that out. All the while, Philippines is 100% on both lists. And that is supposedly the enigma? Are you kidding? Or settled, on the land with the wrong resources? Duh. Well, not just resources. Polo, Barbosa, Pinto, Magellan, Pigafetta, and we could go on and on with a huge, massive list, provide exact geography leading to the Philippines for the Lequios, including coordinates in some cases, just as Antonio Galvao from the last video. If you haven't watched that, check it out. How on earth is this even a question? Academics have failed us, as have Bible scholars on this one. They write in blindness from a box, basically a perspective completely boxed in, ignoring the actual isles of gold, even guessing a whole bunch of places that aren't even isles for that matter. Watch Solomon's Gold series. We deal with practically all of them. In these days of increasing knowledge, this is being restored. If you are a pastor and you do not know this, it is time to awaken yourself and your congregation. Barbosa described Lequios as facing the great land of China, a match for Luzon across the South China Sea, not for Okinawa, over 100 kilometers northeast. He said they came to Malacca, Malaysia, with 3 or 4 large ships annually, trading gold, silver, porcelains, and fine cloths. These are the ships Portuguese Governor Gabal identified in North Luzon. From the last video, you will not find them in Ryukyu. That's a problem. The people were described as white European-like merchants. Gabal defines Filipinos as exactly that, not Okinawan fishermen. But the merchant elite of Luzon, Gabal defined, already found by the Portuguese. Hello. Not a mystery, as Magellan defined in his copy of Barbosa's journal, which made its way into the archives in Seville, Spain, according to Dunusset, a French historian who observed the original there in the early 1900s still. Barbosa listed their exports: gold bars, silver, silks, porcelain, and very good wheat. But Okinawa was not known for any of this in Barbosa's time. In Luzon, gold mines were well known. Alluvial gold, easy to mine, well documented to this day, even in science journals. Let's also not forget Isaiah's mention of the wedge of Ophir, gold bars, and several historic references are made to the ancient Philippines trading in gold bars even. In Ryukyu, was that crickets I heard? No mention of its having ancient gold in the ground, whether alone bars. The Batanes Islands and North Luzon grew Adlay, and still do, a native cereal celebrated for its rich nutrition. This is not just mentioned as any wheat, but very good wheat, which Adlay is known for its high protein content, especially. Ryukyu had wheat introduced later, it seems, and not notable that we've been able to find. One would think those espousing the Ryukyu theory, which is no theory at all, would consider such. You would also think they would bother to try to at least address the fact that Luzon and Batanes are also marked Lequios on many later maps they use as academia is supposed to require, yet gives them a pass. Interesting. We will not. Another resource also mentioned by Abraham Ortelius, who we'll cover in a whole video at some point. Even the ancient incense trade points to the Philippines as the true land of Elemi, the poor man's frankincense, that's what it's called, still harvested from pili trees today. In our book, we cover frankincense and myrrh of ancient Egypt archaeology. Now, it tests as Elemi, not the modern paradigm, which is steeped in fraud. That is ignored, though they have been proven to be antiquated in thought. Ryukyu had no frankincense trees of any sort, of any kind, in any reference at any time. Otherwise, sure, why not consider it, right? Wrong. The Philippines did and still does. This wasn't just Barbosa, however. The maps confirm it. Lequios shows up as Luzon in the Rodriguez chart between 1512 and 1514 before Barbosa. According to Tomé Peri, it is identified as a giant island southeast of China in the South China Sea. Peri, however, at least his translator, evidently thought that meant Ryukyu. Duh, it's not there. It is defined and identified as a giant island southeast of China in the South China Sea. Anyone calling that Ryukyu forgot basic geography and struggles with spatial relations, as there is not a single large island in Ryukyu, whether alone a very large one. And when we get to Pinto, you'll see there's supposed to be 5 very large islands in the area, in the archipelago of the Lequios. That is a problem. Ryukyu doesn't have a single large, whether alone very large, island. That is just not academic. Let's call it what it is. In 1526 and 1529, Diego Ribero, famous Spanish royal cartographer, places Lequios in the area of Luzon on both, and we covered the 1539 Santa Cruz official Spanish government map last episode, which says the same. Did someone say Ryukyu? Really? You have got to be kidding. Cabot's 1544 map even features a canal of Lequios west of Luzon, next to Palawan, just the same as Ribero, really. Have academics forgotten that he was hired by the King of Spain after Magellan to go to Tarshish and Ophir in the Philippines? And he created a map defining Lequios and Zamboanga, it's there too, look at the top right, as the Philippines. That's below the Tropic of Cancer. That is kin to Luzon. It's not Japan. He was a cartographer, after all. Then, something changed. Like the old magic 8-ball. Here's an example. By the 17th century, the Lequios story began to shift north. The distances shrinking. Indeed, a brazen attempt which fails logic. Jesuit chroniclers began pushing the idea that Lequios was Ryukyu, claiming it was just 30 leagues from China. Now that is laughable. Yep, we had an attacker attempt such from our original blog, but here's the problem. There is nothing in the China Sea 30 leagues east of China. That would make Ryukyu 4 times closer than it actually is. Wow. Even Ryukyu is 130 plus leagues from China, not 30. Embarrassing. and even more so for the Jesuit who projected comedy, not geography. So what happened? The God culture calls it the Jesuit Shrink Ray. When the maps didn't support the narrative, the sea got smaller. Now, that's a gotcha as we catch the Jesuits trying to change history and maps to fit their agenda. Disgusting. Distances were altered. Lequios was moved, erased from Luzon, and dropped onto Okinawa like a colonial sticker on truth. That was broadcast to the world as a supposed traditional position when it was new and strange doctrine, whether alone illiterate. But the original evidence never left. These maps from royal cartographers are still there, and the Jesuits can't move an already charted, published, sealed, and archived position of fact. That is not academic. Now, we're going to cover Pinto over multiple videos as it appears his journal was altered by the Jesuits after the fact, and, well, they even admit it, at least scholars do. However, according to Rebecca Katz, who translated one of the more popular versions today, in a 1554 letter to the Jesuits, actually, Portuguese explorer Mendes Pinto wrote that Lequios was 250 leagues from China. Oops, that is well beyond Ryukyu, way beyond. And that Japan was another 100 leagues beyond that point of Lequios. This is a simple match, requiring a fit to both positions. Many forget the second and even ignore the first, also, which neither match Ryukyu. That's a problem. This places Lequios precisely in northern Luzon or Batanes. Again, this is a definitive description of northern Luzon on both counts, as Luzon is 250 leagues from famous Chinese ports, such as Fujian, which is the likely port we're talking about here, frequented by the Portuguese and even Pinto, and that is then 100 leagues from Japan indeed, which actually, in that calculation, in that math, would include Ryukyu as part of Japan even, because it was considered as such even then. For those who can count, of course, or wish to try. Not Ryukyu. Not even close for either of the two measures. Not just one, okay, academia. It's time to correct this narrative and stop propagating a supposed theory that failed before it even started. No one needs to justify the Jesuit attempt to take over Japan anymore. Drop it. The truth was never buried. It was footnoted. From Barbosa's 175 leagues from Malaysia to Pinto's 250-league letter from China to dozens of maps spanning 3 centuries, Lequios was never Ryukyu. Not in origin, not in reality, only in a fictional world that forgets how to do simple math even. It was Luzon, the land of gold, of Elemi, of wheat and wealth, native resources not even found in Ryukyu, especially in any kind of abundance compared to the number 2 land of gold in untapped gold reserves to this day, according to the Fraser Institute, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, etc. with mega history compared to, literally, nothing. Conflated geography from later Jesuits after this was already determined, and even an ancient Chinese account, which also, never pointed to Ryukyu, who is not the Luki of ancient times. Also a conflated term that did not exist in Ryukyu before the Jesuits. We will cover that as well. A maritime empire erased, then quietly restored by the quill, as the truth remained preserved outside of the Jesuit fraud. They moved the land. They shrunk the sea. But they couldn't erase the past forever. No. Because even now, the silenced maps speak. Join the awakening. History didn't just speak, it sang. And the world is finally listening. Join us. Subscribe for more deep dive historical investigations from the God culture. Because truth isn't a legend, it's a legacy. Subscribe now at thegodculture.org. Since YouTube seems challenged to place our videos in streams and notify subscribers. Like and read our new blogs at thegodculturephilippines.com. Thanks for watching. Ya bless to everyone. In the beginning, a garden was planted, enclosed within the earth, in the east, the Orient, far east, says Enoch before the flood, and Noah who lived there and mapped it in the Philippines. The Bible has always led there, and even Bible historians knew how to read the Hebrew, such as Josephus in 90 AD, Lactantius and African in 310, and in 550, Cosmos, the Greek monk and merchant traveler who went to the Indies, wrote in Alexandria, Egypt, Africa, Christian topography, and he mapped paradise as the Philippines. That map was even published in the Greek edition of the Bible at one time. A 6,000-year track record, forgotten today by illiterate scholars. They have no education on this topic. Let us explore this massive trove of ancient maps. Israel is not east, and a spring is a spring, not a river, and must be fed by a mega river as its source, and must connect to 3 other heads as well, all rivers, and actually salt water even. Can they read? Africa is not east, nor in Shem's far east, where the garden has always resided. Mesopotamia is the occult creation myth of the Nephilim. Nice, scholars. Modern rivers from rain did not even exist before the flood, and the Bible never uses the word Tigris ever in the original Hebrew. Why do modern scholars have no clue when the evidence is so vast? The Garden of Eden revealed, resolving the 6,000-year testimony marking the Far East. Now available in print only, no ebook, on Amazon and Shopee Philippines. Over 75 high-resolution color historic maps with accurate interpretation no one can truly dispute. Get your book now, and a new series begins.